Hey guys, Hitman89 here, I hope you're doing great, and today we're gonna be diving into Battlefield 2042. I'm sure most of you heard of its horrible launch back in November 2021. Apart from the laggy servers, players had to deal with horrible performance, freezes, hard crashes, and enough bugs and glitches to make everyone's experience as painful as possible. But it's been a while and the devs have been working on fixing the game, so the question we're gonna be answering today is, now that the Season 1 update is here, is the game good now? Without further ado, let's start this review with the graphics.
Can't wait to see what we find out there.
I shot this review on Xbox Series X, and I have to say, for an online game with 128 players and huge maps, it looks pretty good. Starting with the environments, they look more than decent, but destruction is what made me fall in love with Battlefield in the first place, and here, it's limited to say the least. We used to be able to take down entire buildings. Whatever happened to that? I mean, they've added some cool weather effects, but I take the destruction we had in older Battlefield games over these tornadoes and storms any day. Specialists look good and the vehicles are detailed, but all around the game looks worse than Battlefield 1, and that's a 6-year-old game. On the bright side, and compared to the day 1 version, the frozen run-in animation has been fixed and more realistic animations were added to make the whole thing look even better. There are even small details now, like giving a thumbs up when using the thank you command. Smoke, fire, explosions, and lighting effects look pretty damn good, and even though I wanted the game to look more next-gen, all around it looks way better than the old-gen version. That's basically the equivalent of going from high to very low graphics settings on PC, but I understand they had to do that to make sure the game runs properly on PS4 and Xbox One. Speaking of which, when it comes to performance, I've only played the Series X version, but I did some research regarding the PC, PS5 and all-gen versions, and by research, I mean I looked it up on YouTube. All versions of the game are meant to run at 60 FPS, but none of them manage to do that properly. Series X and PS5 have frame rate dips in 128 player mode, but it's barely noticeable for me on Series X. And when it comes to PC, the system requirements are already quite high and the game isn't well optimized either, so unless you have a beast of a PC, Battlefield 2042 is gonna run like shit.
Yes! Everything as I expected.
Oh, and for the poor fucks that are still on PS4 or Xbox One, you better not expect the game to run at a stable 60 FPS, cause it won't. That being said, after all these updates, performance is a little better. I haven't had as many freezes and frame rate dips as before, but when it's not the frame rate, it's the laggy servers, so it's still far from being perfect. Now let's move on to the sound. When starting Battlefield 2042, the first thing you'll notice is the absence of background music. I mean, it's there, but it's super quiet and it's nowhere near being as good as, let's say, Battlefield 4's music. Moving on to the sound effects, and I usually love Battlefield's sound design, but I don't know what went wrong this time. I feel like weapons don't sound loud enough, they're kinda muffled, and the voice acting is just okay, but I'm really glad they finally got rid of those end of round quotes, cause they were so bad they ended up becoming a meme. Anyway, I'll let you listen to the game audio a little bit before we take a closer look at the gameplay.
We have full control of Foxtrot sector.
When the game first came out, it lacked some of the most basic features anyone would expect in an online objective-based game like this one. Thankfully, voice over IP, a decent scoreboard, better UI, and weekly objectives were added a couple of months ago, and most importantly, the hit registration and aiming system have been fixed. And now that the Season 1 update is here, there are 2 new weapons, a new map, and 10 brand new specialists. Just kidding, we only got 1 new specialist. She has a guided missile launcher though, which could be very useful against helicopters. But, and even though these additions are appreciated, it's not nearly enough content for people who have been waiting for over 8 months. So let's just talk about the pros and cons when it comes to the core gameplay. Starting with the good stuff, the plus system allows you to change your weapon attachments on the go and it's extremely useful. The call-in system also comes in handy in certain situations as it allows players to drop ship vehicles and robots right to their location. Another good thing is that the devs got rid of an insane amount of bugs, and they also fixed stuff like having your projectiles or explosives disappear when you die, or at least it happens way less often now, cause that used to be a thing. Now, when it comes to the bad stuff, and even though specialists have their own abilities and gadgets, like a sentry gun, a grappling hook, extra grenades, a wingsuit, etc., they made alt classes useless. Oh, and Breakthrough is now limited to 64 players, and Hazard Zone, the mode that's like Escape from Tarkov, which ended up being not that fun, and since most players aren't interested in playing it, it's been officially abandoned and therefore it won't be getting any more updates. So Battlefield 2042 doesn't have enough weapons, not enough new maps, and not enough content. Portal mode was supposed to be the icing on the cake, but it ended up being the cake itself.
Don't be sad. This is just how it works out sometimes.
Yeah, I know. At least the gameplay improved enough to be enjoyable. Speaking of which, let's move on to the fun factor. Although the changes may appear to be minor, and they are, I honestly had much more fun playing the game now than I did when it first came out. And that's probably because everything used to feel a little off, while now you can actually get some enjoyment when landing some cool moves, saving your teammates, or just when you manage to kill 4 or 5 motherfuckers in a row. But there are still enough technical issues, bugs, and glitches to make the whole experience way less fun. Plus, there's clearly not enough content to keep players entertained until Season 2 drops, which takes us to the value for money. Battlefield 2042 ditched the single-player campaign, but it definitely didn't ditch its price tag. We're talking $60 on all-gen consoles and $70 on PS5 and Series X. So most players just assumed there would be enough content and quality of life improvements over the previous games to justify buying it for full price. As we all know, that didn't happen. And even though the latest update definitely improved the game, I honestly think, in its current state, it's worth $30.
They've come to learn their lesson, and I have plenty to teach them.
Well, DICE clearly haven't learned anything as they continue to release unfinished games and spend the next 2 years fixing them. Although there have been some improvements, the game still has plenty of issues and definitely not enough content. So it might be good in a year, but right now it's just above average, and that's why I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. Battlefield 2042 should have at least come out like this, and then the devs would only have to focus on fixing minor bugs and putting out more content. But instead, we had to wait 8 months for that, and now we're only getting a new map, a specialist, and 2 new weapons. By the way, the new map is so good that I don't think most players will be able to go back to the old ones. Long story short, if you already have the game, definitely give it another shot, but if you're considering buying it, I'd say wait a few more months and still only get it when it's on sale. Anyway, that's gonna be it for my Battlefield 2042 review. I hope you found it useful. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and please subscribe if you're new to the channel. I make top 10 videos of the best games to play per genre and game reviews as well, so take a look around and you might like my channel. It would be awesome if we could hit 50k this year, so if you wanna help out, maybe tell your friends about me. Alright, I think this outro is way too long, so just tell me what game you'd like me to review next in the comments down below. It's been Hitman89, see you guys very soon.